What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am one of your co hosts, Eli Cooper, coming at you today with my guy, Mike Badzig, once again. How's it going, bro?
What's going on, Brody? We have an NBA show today.
Yeah.
Strictly NBA show today.
Yep.
It's been a while since when this podcast started, we were pretty much an NBA show only for a while there. It was the only thing going on for a minute. And today, a lot going on. NBA offseason in full effect. We got lots to talk about.
Yeah. NBA draft was last night, and quite a few surprises, I would say. And not just with the picks, but with some of the trades that happened on draft day, whether it was during the draft or before the draft, which we will get into all of that and more today. First thing we want to talk about is make sure you guys head over to MyBookieAG, where you can use the promo code ALLINPOD to get a 100% match of your first deposit, minimum of $45, no more than $1,000. So you can, this is an offshore gambling site, so you can bet on things that you wouldn't be able to bet on here in the States, things like that. So make sure you guys go ahead and head over to MyBookieAG and use the promo code ALLINPOD to get take advantage of that promotion. So first place we've got to start is one of the biggest superstars in the game. Reportedly, once out of Houston, there's been a lot of talks about pretty much everyone in Houston is unhappy. And the main guy now, at first said he wanted to stay, and now reportedly wants to force a trade to the Nets. Obviously, going to take a lot of moving pieces there.
Yes.
And if it were to get done, it would create another super team with Kyrie and KD being there. Thoughts on James Harden take this kind of a stance?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And listen, we always try to be pro player. We are a pro player podcast.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
we are pro player people. However, is this pro player or pro superstar, right? Because there's about 6 guys in the league who can do this, who can say, I want traded to this one location, right? It's not like he's saying, I want traded, go test the market, see what you can get back. He actually completely handcuffs the Rockets here because any other team, including yours who might be interested, is really going to have a tough time making a deal knowing that James Harden wants to be in Brooklyn, and when his contract's up in a year and a half, he's probably going to leave anyway, right? So who's going to make that deal? Maybe someone does. Maybe someone says, we'll take it, and we'll try to convince him to stay after that. But it handcuffs you so much that you feel like you have to trade him to the Nets, or every other team doesn't want to trade for him besides the Nets. And then the Nets, from that perspective, can look at it and say, well, nobody else is going to offer you anything. So we'll keep LeVert. How about that? We'll keep LeVert. You know what I mean? Like, it just puts the Rockets in such a bad position. And this is something that is relatively new to the NBA, right? We've had superstars demand trades for a while now, really throughout NBA history. Superstars have demanded trades, and we're okay with that. Right. Demanding a trade to one specific team and saying, forget it, I'm not going to play for the next 2 years if you don't do it. That's kind of insane. I think that crosses a line with me. Like, because think about all the guys on Harden's team, right? Think about how PJ Tucker feels right now, right? You've gone to war with this guy for the last 4 years. You almost got there twice. You took the Warriors to the brink. You arguably could have won those games. And then he's just, he goes and works out with KD in LA, and then he's like, well, I'm just going to go play with them in Brooklyn. Like, dude, this is not pro player at all, because there's 8 other guys on the Rockets who are going to be screwed because of this. Think about how the Rockets as an organization, can you think of, even including LeBron James and the teams he's played for, can you think of an organization that has built their entire system, roster around one player? No organization has ever given as much and built around one player the way the Rockets have built around James Harden. And for him to then say, you know what, this was fun. I give up. I want to go to Brooklyn. I appreciate you guys doing all this for me, but I want to go to Brooklyn.
Right.
In the same breath, I totally understand that owners cut players and they trade players. They pull the rug out from under them, and it happens all the time.
Right.
I totally get that. And from that perspective, it's hard for me to condemn him. But I can tell you right now, if I was the Rockets GM, I might look at James Harden and say, you know what? We're good. We'll hang on to you. Like, we don't have to trade you. Like, you can sit the bench or you can sit out, but you're not going to get paid. If you're willing to sacrifice, $40 million the next 2 years because you don't want to play for us, you want to force your way to Brooklyn. Like, this player empowerment stuff, and I'm going to let you jump in, and then maybe I'll jump in after that again. But I think, and I've talked about this before, I don't know if this is actually good for the league.
Yeah. So, one, to your point about the Rockets front office, they have reportedly said they're perfectly fine with both Westbrook and Harden being there and being upset. Yep. Like they have 2 whole years left under their contract. So yep. My thing is, if I'm Houston and you're not willing to trade, what I want for either of them, and granted, you're probably going to have to blow all this up, in 2 years anyway. There is no pressure for Houston to trade or sell low on Harden or Westbrook for that matter, because they gave up a ton for Westbrook. Chris Paul and multiple picks in order to get Westbrook, and it failed after 1 year, and now now he wants out. And same with Harden, like you said, they've invested so much in developing a team and roster around him. For him to just kind of pull the rug out from under them is to me surprising. And it's weird because like a day before this rumor even came out, he was like, I'm ready to roll with the Rockets. And I think maybe the Nets thing was just so enticing. But here's the difference between like what he's doing and like what Anthony Davis did previously. James Harden has no leverage, right? Because there's 2 whole years left under his contract. So, he doesn't have the leverage of, well, you're going to lose me in a year anyway. Same with like other teams trading for him. They're going to have him for at least 2 years instead of a 1-year rental. Mm-hmm. So like a contending team might be more interested in trading for him right now. Because they're like, well, you're going to have to play for us for 2 years or not play at all. You know what I mean? And if you want to waste 2 years of your early 30s, be my guest. Right. That would be my thing. If any organization who's interested in James Harden or even the Rockets, I would say, if you're not going to sit out right for 2 years in your prime. I think that's unlikely.
But it is unlikely. But like 2 years, like, and we say like, well, he's got 2 years left, and like. I agree. Like, that's a lot of time, and I don't think he wants to waste that. But, like, Paul George forced his way out with 2 years left on the deal. Like, this is the trend, right? Like, This is the trend.
The only thing is that he did not get where he wanted to go. Remember, he wanted to go to L.A., and he ended up in OKC. And and the Pacers got a lot back for him. And Sabonis and Victor Oladipo, 2 guys that are still there. Despite all the stuff that's happening with Oladipo right now, he's still there. And, prior to his injury was really good for them. And Sabonis was an all-star for them. So they got, quality back for him in this same situation. So if I'm Houston, again, there's no need for me to sell low on James Harden or take anything less than what he's worth. Because essentially the decision's going to come down to, you're either going to pay up for James Harden what he's truly worth, or we'll just keep him and play mediocre basketball for 2 years, and then he can go where he wants.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, and I hope so bad that they just tell him to F off and do whatever he wants to do, sit the bench or play. But we have a lot to talk about today, but I just want to like briefly kind of talk about. Like, is this good for the game in a way? Like, so like, and we've talked about the ratings plenty, right? The ratings are always in the headlines. People are not watching the NBA anymore. Like, I think for us, growing up anyway, like you're a Sixers fan, I'm a Raptors fan. Like one of the things that drew me to the Raptors was like the guys, right? We had DeMar and Kyle Lowry, and it didn't matter if we kept losing every year; those were our guys, right?
Yeah.
And then Kyle Lowry becomes this guy, and you just have a certain connection to them, which keeps you with the team. Like I don't think that's how the younger NBA fans look at the NBA, where it's not teams, it's LeBron is on the Cavs. Now he's on the Heat. Now he's on the Cavs. Now he's on the Lakers. Those are my teams. KD
Right.
is on the Thunder. Now he's on the Warriors. Now he's on the Nets. Those are my teams.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you lose. And it's something we've talked about is the regional TV ratings are way down, right? The national ratings still get some good love. They're down, but not quite as bad as the regional rate. Do you think that this kind of 2K player switching all the time, I know you're hosting today, but do you think this is good for the game?
From a player perspective, yes, they get to control their own destiny. For the ratings, no. And maybe this is what it is. Maybe this is the underlying issue that no one has been able to pinpoint, in the NBA is why the ratings have continued to decline. I think you have to look at it on a more local or regional level because if, especially for what you're really talking about is casual fans, right? Like casual NBA fans who watch the game for specific teams, right? They root for specific teams. When you really look at if you look at like the NFL, right, and you look at NFL fan bases, like team loyalty is so deep in the NFL. It's almost like no one really, and maybe because the player empowerment is not there in the NFL, but like team loyalty is everything for NFL fans. Like hardly anyone follows a player when he leaves their team in the NFL. But in the NBA, it's completely opposite. Like they're like, oh, well, I'm not a Lakers fan, I'm a LeBron fan. Yep. I'm not a Sixers fan, I'm a Joel Embiid fan. Right. I don't know how many of those there are of those. But that's the thing. It's so like right now, unless the only teams with like actual fan loyalty, like for the most part, it's still the Lakers. Like there are people who will root for the Lakers regardless of who's on that team. The Sixers, your major market teams, right? These are the ones that hold that still have that fan loyalty. But like what happened? The Houston Rockets are not going to have a big regional fan base without James Harden there. You know what I mean? And right now the fan base the Rockets fans that are there are Rockets fans mostly because of him. So
that's exactly. And that's like my thing is like if I'm a Houston fan right now, I'm like, bro, what the hell? We just, we've been through this together. Like, you're our guy. Like, what do you mean you're just gonna leave? Like, you're just gonna quit on us and go play with Brooklyn? Like, and I think that turns people off, right? They're like, oh, do this. Like, I'm not gonna. Who cares?
Right. And like, if you were not a James Harden fan, like you were a Rockets fan before he got there, and then he leaves, Russ leaves, and like you're in rebuild mode. Rebuild mode is not good for ratings in those regions, right? And then the Rockets are not going to draw any kind of national TV games. So like how long do the Rockets have to be bad or mediocre before those fans start to come back and watch? You know what I mean? So that's the kind of thing, that you're dealing with, especially when all your superstars are essentially on a handful of teams. At least back when, the ratings were at their highest point, Melo was with the Knicks. Did they have a chance at winning a championship? No. But they were good, right? Because Melo was with the Knicks, and they were a top 5 seed. Amari was there, and there was more balance of power, even if you had the Heat, or even if you go back to the 90s. There was a superstar on almost every team, or a marquee player, I should say, on every team. That's not the case anymore. And part of that is the player empowerment, but also is part of the tanking, right? Like a lot of teams will sell off their really good players, or like not, you know what I mean? Like kind of I don't want to say what the Hornets did, but the Hornets just kind of let Kemba Walker go, you know what I mean? In free agency, like we're not going to pay you a super max because, we'd rather have the cap flexibility. But then like, who's going to watch a Hornets game if Kemba Walker ain't playing? Right. Don't get me wrong. Devontae Graham was really good last year, but if my team's not playing against the Hornets, I'm not tuning in to watch Devontae Graham. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because also like even if you have Kemba Walker and you're an 8 seed every year, or even if you're a 9 seed, or even if you're not making the playoffs, but you're close, like you're at least battling, like, but you have your guy, like
Exactly.
you have your city's guy, like even if he's not the best guy in the world, like when DeMar was there and DeMar was our best player, like we knew we were gonna lose to the to the Cavs,
Right.
but he was our dude. Like we just loved him because he fought like for Toronto. Like now it's like these guys just don't care. Like, and it's a larger conversation, I'm sure, about generational differences, but I think it factors in.
Well, Allen Iverson.
Yeah, exactly.
Kept the Sixers franchise afloat his entire career.
Yep.
Were we ever winning a championship with him on the floor? Probably not.
Right.
But boy, was he! I went to a Sixers game to watch him drop 60. I went to multiple Sixers games when they weren't good because of Al. I mean, well, they weren't bad, but they weren't championship caliber. And now it's just like with the way that the teams are moving, it's like, why even watch a team that isn't championship caliber? Because the biggest and brightest names are all on the same teams now.
Right. And think about the way you think about Allen Iverson, and we've argued off camera about his historical ranking.
Right.
But you have him very high in your historical rankings because he was your guy and he stuck with you guys. Like, imagine if they lose the finals in 01. I think they get bounced in the first or second round in 02. And then 03 they get bounced in the first round. And then he was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm out of here. Trade me. Well, like, you're probably going to think of him a lot differently. You're probably going to think about the league a lot differently in turn because of that as a whole.
Yeah, agreed. So let's move on to our next topic, which is probably the biggest of the day. The NBA draft last night was held, and, quite a few surprises in this one, starting with Anthony Edwards ended up going number 1. We actually talked about this right before the draft. The Timberwolves were taking a serious look at LaMelo. We both thought Edwards was the right pick here. So the T-Wolves did the right thing here, right?
Yes, they definitely did. If they weren't going to trade it, and there was reports that they were taking calls really right up until they put the pick in. Right. But I think you kind of have to go with Edwards based on, not only because looking at this draft, right, there was 3 guys. There was Edwards, there was Wiseman, and there was LaMelo. And if you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, it's hard to know who has the best upside. Really, probably any 3 of those you could argue had the best upside. Right. So who's going to fit in with what we have right now? Who can we build around? Well, you already have Cat, so you probably don't want Wiseman. And you already have D'Lo, so you probably don't love the idea of a LaMelo D'Lo backcourt. So I think you kind of have to take Edwards and hope that he ends up being this prolific scorer and figures it out. So I think it's a good pick. I was not terribly surprised. Maybe that's because we both said that we would take him. So I guess maybe we should be surprised when the Timberwolves do the right thing. But I think it was a good move. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was a good move, and I was a little bit surprised that they took him because I was just kind of waiting for them to roll the dice on LaMelo Ball. Like all the signs pre-draft were pointing to that with how much they were talking to him and working him out. I was waiting for, them to do it and then just kind of, force D'Lo and LaMelo Ball work. I'm glad they did the sensible thing. And if we're being 100% honest, I think Anthony Edwards has the most upside of all the players here besides Wiseman.
I agree. I think he might have more than Wiseman even.
Yeah, there's a legitimate argument there. Like, the dude is what, 6'5", 225 or 6'4", 225, somewhere in that range. Like, he's already got the NBA body. He's a freak athlete. Like, he's by far the best athlete amongst the wings or guards in the draft. And can shoot it, can handle it. Like, he's definitely a scorer. Like, sure, every young player has to work on shot selection. Every young player has to work on, competing on defense. But the thing is, it's not a matter of can he defend. It's a matter of, will he defend? Right. And, that's something that would come down to coaching. You get the right coach that instills the importance of defense to him. He will play defense. And, you talk about a guy who could be, I think he has the potential of a 25+% per game scorer who can also be a good defender. And at bare minimum, I think he's a guy who could be, 17, 18 points a game. Like if he never really reaches his full potential, I think the floor for him as a scorer is like 17, 18. And then at that point, if he's a really good defender, that's a heck of an asset to have on the wing spot. I mean, look at Klay Thompson, who we'll get to later, averages about 18 to 20 a game, but because he defends so well, he gives you so much flexibility for what you can do as far as pieces around him, and he doesn't need the ball in his hands. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with Anthony Edwards here. He's not like someone who always needs to have the ball in his hands. He can play off it. He's a shooting guard for that reason. And, you get him to buy in defensively. And I think the Timberwolves have a really nice core here with D'Lo, Towns and Edwards. Now it's a matter of getting these guys, someone coming in and being able to instill a championship mindset into these guys as far as how hard you actually have to play in order to do something like that. But they're all young still, all young.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the big question with Edwards, right? He's like, is the motor there? Does he have the drive? Does he have the, the Mamba mentality, which is behind you? Like, does he have that? Or is he going to be Andrew Wiggins? Is he going to be, doesn't really want it that bad, not really willing to work on the defensive end? That's the big question for him. All of the potential athleticism, natural born scoring ability is there. It's just a matter of, can you get this guy in the gym? I think they should probably look for some veterans to bring in. Maybe not someone as fierce as Jimmy Butler, because that didn't work out well for a cat. But you need an adult in the room there. I don't think it's Cat. So hopefully they make a move for somebody like that.
Yeah. So we talked about who actually went number one. The other person in consideration there was LaMelo. He ended up falling to number 3, which was expected. I don't think there was any real chance that the Warriors were going to take him here, even with the Klay Thompson injury, which, again, we'll get into. But, he goes to the Hornets here at number 3. And, because he went to the Hornets here at number 3, I think this was actually the perfect fit for him. Of all the teams here in the lottery, because the Hornets were the one team where they could kind of ignore positional need and just kind of go after the most talented player available. And, like I said, Devontae Graham is great. And I know you actually didn't pay a ridiculous amount for Terry Rozier, but maybe compared to what the market was for him. But you got Terry Rozier, but neither of those guys is box office. And I don't 100% know that either of those guys are a long-term expectation for you, right? Without other superstars there. So to me, and there really wasn't any other player that they have who fits that, who checks that box, right? Is this is the guy we're going to build around for our future. I think LaMelo is now becomes that guy, or at least you're going to find out, right? To say, hey, this was the most talented player at the time, and arguably in some people's eyes, the most talented player in the draft. Let's just go get him and we'll figure it out then. And then we'll structure our pieces around him afterwards. So I think it was a good fit. What were your thoughts on LaMelo here going to the 3rd pick?
Yeah, I think it is a good fit. I think it's definitely a better fit than either Minnesota or Golden State, assuming he was going to go top 3. Yeah. I would have maybe liked to see Detroit try to trade up and grab him. But
that would have been another team, yeah.
I think that the Hornets thing is great, and you know why? I think we have a real chance here to see what we've been waiting for 3 years now, which is a LeVar Ball versus Michael Jordan one-on-one. Let's make it happen. Pay-per-view, not even pay-per-view. You know what? We'll host it on the All In Network YouTube page. We'll go live with the one-on-one game, LeVar Ball versus Michael Jackson. We've been waiting to see it. LeVar's been talking his talk. I'm sure that he got to talk to Michael at some point, assuming that the Hornets probably knew that they were going to end up getting him at this spot.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I do like the fit. I think, as far as talent-bearing rosters go, it's probably them in Detroit is the top 2. So you can kind of squeeze him in there and then just build it around him as much as we like Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, who might still be moved. Who knows? I don't know. Expectations for LaMelo are interesting. right? So we'll see how he shoots the ball and how he plays with actual NBA athletes and not guys in Australia who it's a good league, but it's a little bit different here. The passing ability is there. I liked whenever Jay Billis was like, they were talking about how good of a passer he is, and he's like, well, he can't shoot and he doesn't play any defense. But besides that, he should be good, right? He should be okay. So, I think this is a good spot for him.
Yeah, and when you talk about those two things, like he can't shoot and doesn't play any defense, he kind of reeks of Ricky Rubio in those kind of cases. And we saw,
but he's 6'7".
Right, that's the difference. But like at the end of the day, in today's NBA, if you can't shoot and you can't defend, it's going to actually end up limiting what you can do with the ball in your hands, right? Because teams are going to sag off you and make you shoot from the perimeter. So that's going to be, the first thing that he has to work on. Because, like, granted, he could go his career without playing any defense, but not if he can't. You know what I mean? Not if he can't shoot the ball. Yeah. That's going to be the kicker there. So we'll see how that works out for him in Charlotte.
Yep.
And that takes us to the number 2 pick, Wiseman, who I think pretty much everyone thought if the Warriors weren't going to take or trade this pick, I think it was pretty foregone that Wiseman was going to end up here if Anthony Edwards didn't go number 1.
Yep.
Let's talk about Wiseman first.
Okay.
His upside, what you expect from him, and how he fits with Golden State.
No, I mean, I like Wiseman. I think that he's a high upside guy, especially in the league that has, it went really small with the Warriors, and now it's kind of market correcting itself, and some big guys are becoming more important. So I don't think that he's not going to fit in this league or anything like that just because he's a big guy. I like him a lot. I think he's got a high upside. We didn't really get to see him at Memphis much, unfortunately, and we did. It was against like junior college guys. So, of course, he dominated. But, I'm sure we're going to talk about the Klay Thompson injury. So, because of that, we probably are going to see him in an expanded role this year. And he might be able to work nicely off of Steph. If you think about it, Steph's never really had a guy like this, right? So, probably the best big man center he had was Bogut, I'm thinking, right? Well, Bogut can never step out the way that Wiseman is able to. Right. So I think he's got ability to be an immediate defensive impact. And if he develops a 3, he can step out right now, like kind of like midi. But if he steps out for a 3 and he's able to do the pick and pops with Steph and space it even more like the Warriors like to do, it might end up being a really good pick.
I think it was a great pick, regardless of the Klay Thompson injury. I think he was the best plug and play fit that you could possibly find with this roster.
Yeah.
And I think they were very fortunate that even without getting the number 1 pick, the T-Wolves getting the number 1 pick ahead of being the team that got it ahead of them, ensuring that Wiseman was not going to go there. They never even talked to him. So this was almost like them winning the lottery, right? Was here at this 2 spot. And, it also gave them trade leverage because, with where everyone knew when the T-Wolves got the number 1 pick, it was going to be LaMelo or Edwards because they have Towns, right? Mm-hmm. So it gave them leverage. They're like, okay, well, Wiseman's the perfect fit for us. And what we like to do, he's an athletic big man who runs the floor. So when we play our fast tempo, he'll be able to do that. He's great in pick and rolls, which obviously Steph's going to love. And he's a lob threat, which we've seen work a lot in Golden State's offense because of how often guys are able to slip screens when they're setting them off the ball, right? Or when Draymond Green comes off that roll, backside or help side defender steps up and he just throws that lob. Looney, Bogut, JaVale McGee, like guys have eaten off of that. And now you're getting a guy like James Wiseman who's going to be an immediate lob threat. So, like you said, he's never really had a great center. But like if you want to compare, the only time they really had someone with his kind of length and athleticism was McGee, right? And McGee looked really good with the Warriors in his time there. It's so good that they started him against the Cavs in one of those finals in either 2017 or 2018 when they won it because all McGee had to do was set some screens, and when two guys ran at Steph or Klay, he was just wide open for lobs all day. And you're telling me bare minimum that's all Wiseman has to do is block shots, rebound, and catch lobs on the other end. Well, like of course he can do that.
Yeah.
But now you have a legitimate person who I think, at least in one-on-ones and depending on the matchup, you can throw the ball down to Wiseman and say, get a bucket down here in the post, or while you're in the post, we can run off a ton of screens, on the backside or whatever, and we'll have those kickouts and things like that because he's also a decent passer out of the post. So I think what he brings to the center position for them is like you said, is something that they never had, but he is still with his athleticism and length, still the prototypical center that you want in the NBA if you're going to have someone that big, right?
Yeah.
Someone who is long, athletic, runs the floor, and he can even, switch out to guards on occasion, and has the foot speed to not be, embarrassed on a consistent basis, so you don't have that fear of switching kind of situation. I don't think you have that with Wiseman here. So I thought he was the perfect fit. Regardless of,
I'll be honest. I think he's the best player. I would have taken him number one, even if I was the T-Wolves.
Really?
Yeah, because I think he's that good, and I think the upside is even higher than Edwards is.
Yeah, I do. I think he has the highest upside in the draft. If you ask me, and you talk about someone who has the mid-range game, like you mentioned. Like you said, if he can step out and hit the three with the other things that he can do, like there would be no flaws in his game as a center at that point. If he can step out and hit the three, he'd have to get a little more consistent in the post with his back to the basket. But who's really playing with a ton of post touches anyway? So really, as long as he can score there,
yeah. So what's the
4
upside?
out of 5 times?
AD?
Upside, yeah, I would say upside could be.
That's a tough one, right?
That's a tough one. But AD has increased his range since college, so I think it could. I think that could be his ceiling, and his floor is, pretty much every center in the league. Clint Capella,
right, exactly, yeah,
whatever. You know what I mean?
Exactly. He's already a rim runner.
Right, exactly. So his floor is starting, rim running, shot blocking, rebounding center.
Yep, agreed.
And that kind of leads us into, we talked about Klay Thompson's injury. So Klay Thompson's injury news came out right before the draft. The Warriors obviously still took Wiseman, with the number 2 pick, regardless of this. And now reports came out right before we started recording here today that they are in serious talks with trading with OKC for Kelly Oubre. I'm assuming they won't give up much, as they will try to keep their core together, but OKC isn't looking for much in return. Right. Besides a ton of picks, which they will probably be close to triple digits now over the next 5 years.
Yeah, they're almost going to have too many picks. They're going to have to start trading some of their picks. They're going to be like Boston was a couple of years ago whenever they made those the trades with the Nets. They had too many picks. They didn't know what to do with them all.
Right, and I think that's essentially they'll end up packaging those picks to move up in drafts or get established players, whatever. But Kelly Oubre could possibly be the replacement here. I guess that slides Wiggins to the 2, but he at least gives you that two-way player. He ain't Klay Thompson,
no.
But could be a possible suitable replacement. Although it's going to cost them quite a bit in luxury tax. So, what were your thoughts on the Klay news and what the Warriors are looking at as far as replacing him?
It sucks. It absolutely sucks that he's injured again, and we are not going to get to see him for another year. So this is going to be two straight years of no Klay Thompson in our lives, which is a shame because he's one of the most fun players in the league to watch.
Yeah.
As far as the Warriors go, where they go from here, I just, you wonder, you worry about the load that is going to fall to Steph Curry. Obviously, we saw this last year with no Klay, and Steph was being asked to do a lot, ended up getting hurt. You hope that doesn't happen again. If I'm going to assume that he doesn't get hurt, if I'm going to assume Steph doesn't get hurt and Dre doesn't get hurt, and it's this roster with Wiseman, So that would be kind of the main core there is Steph, possibly Oubre, Dre, Wiseman. I don't know. What's the ceiling on that team? Like a 6 seed?
Yeah.
7 seed? Really? Like, I think they're a first round exit if they do make it. The West is good. Like, they're going to have, depending on what Houston does, and we talked about the potential of them keeping those guys. If they keep them, they're probably ahead of the Warriors, at least in the standings. The Suns are going to be a new team. We expect Portland to be better. Like, we just kind of went through this on our last pod when we talked about where Phoenix will fall. Well, like, if the Warriors don't have Klay, because Klay does so much, right? It's not that he's just a shooter, right? He's a floor spacer for Steph. He is a absolute scorer, all around scorer, even off of the dribble. And the defense is the biggest thing with him, right? He's not Klay Thompson if he's not the defender he is.
Right.
And to lose all of that, you just wonder where they make up for that on this roster right now, because it's not a great roster.
Yeah, right. And Oubre will, like you said, he'll plug. He's a Band-Aid, right? He's a Band-Aid fix in this case. And defensively, I don't think he's as good as Klay Thompson is. And he's certainly not the same player offensively. But like you said, the dynamic that Klay Thompson brings on that offensive end, not just from his shooting perspective and floor spacing, but in their motion offense.
Yeah.
When you have to worry about both Steph and Klay coming off of screens for an entire possession, that opens up so much for everybody else on the floor. Like, the game gets so easy for the other guys that are on the floor, especially those guys setting screens. Because, how many times have you watched a Warriors game and Steph came off a screen and 2 guys ran at him, so they got an easy layup from, someone else? Or same thing with Klay Thompson, where Klay Thompson comes off the screen, 2 guys run at him. Because those guys draw so much attention, they naturally make the game easier for everyone else. And most people think about that from a ball dominant player getting a ton of assists, and they say that's making the game easier. Well, these guys do it with their movement without the basketball. And really, there's no way to replicate that, the kind of attention that they draw without the ball in their hands.
Yep.
Unless you shoot like them. And no one really does. And maybe you want to say Seth Curry, but like Seth Curry's never going to draw the attention that these guys draw. Regardless of whether he shoots 60% from the 3, doesn't matter. Like, these guys are, best of all time. They have that reputation. Right. And it's just like, it's tough, man. And you're and then when you come to Klay Thompson individually, like, your left ACL, right, left knee ACL, and now your right Achilles. It's like, how can you really expect to be the same defensive player?
Can't.
Coming back from that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I wonder if he was working out too soon and too much with coming off the knee, and he was overcompensating with that right side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's my fear as well. Is that maybe that's what it was? But I mean, they did give him ample time. I mean, it's November. And I think they were extra careful with him because of what happened to KD, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe this is just, a freak accident, type of situation. But, you have to assume that, I don't know that even if you want to say he came back too early, or it's just, a player can come back in the right time frame, but still have that mental, that mentality of trying to protect that knee, and that's where the overcompensating comes in, and these kind of things happen. So it just sucks, man, because he was a month away from making his return. He did everything he needed to do to come back. They said he looked good, and then this happens with just over a month before, opening day. So it's a crushing blow.
Yes.
I think the Warriors are a great franchise, and maybe trading for Oubre will help. But I just don't see how the dynasty recovers from this.
It's over.
Going forward. Yeah, I think it's over.
I mean, you throw this year away, and then it's like, I don't know.
You just can't guarantee that Klay Thompson comes back from an Achilles the same. And especially when you factor in like the season after this is probably going to start at its regular time, right? So, who knows?
Yep. Sucks.
So before we move on to the next topic, I just want to brag a little bit because as soon as the lottery, I put this up on the screen earlier, but I want to talk about it. As soon as the lottery happened, I picked the top 3. So I just want to, talk about how much.
Oh, how about that?
See the date there for those of you watching on YouTube.
Nice job. You should host a podcast about sports.
Tweet sent August 20th. So
good stuff. Congrats.
Thank you. Now, rest of the NBA draft,
Yes.
there were quite a few surprises
Yes.
throughout this as far as picks go. What was your biggest NBA draft surprise? Pick related or trade related?
Well, I'll start with this. My biggest disappointment and my biggest trigger, and this is not player or NBA related at all. This is ESPN related.
Yes, say it.
Why are they're so like, it's just like a love fest for everybody. It's just a love fest. Everybody's great. Everybody's amazing. There's no bad picks. Every player is the best player in the world and is going to be a great pick. Right. This was not always the case for our young viewers out there. There was a time when people would get picked and the people on set would say, that was a terrible pick. They should have went with this guy. I've never seen a love fest like I saw that. Actually, I think I did. It was ESPN's coverage of the NFL draft. It was the same thing. And I don't know if it's just, 2020. Everybody is feeling bad for each other because of all of the bad things that are going on right now or what it is. But I just can't take it. Like, every pick, we have to have this love fest. And listen, I understand that people don't like to say bad things about young men right now. This was kind of like Lamar Jackson for a while there. There was a couple of weeks for a while now, this whole season in the beginning of it, and then towards the end of last year, where like I think a lot of white guys in the media were like, well, I don't want to say anything about Lamar Jackson. It's too bad because I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy, even though it's looking pretty bad. Well, now it's like these NBA guys. It's like we can't say anything bad about them. Like, some of them aren't very good. We watch some of these guys in college. You're not very good. The dude, some of these dudes are like 6'10", 100 pounds. Like, are we supposed to say that they are good? Like, okay, whatever. That was my first gripe.
Yeah.
The ESPN broadcast. Everybody's too nice. Everybody's too nice, man.
Yeah, that, and I don't love the player comparisons always. I don't know what the thinking is behind a lot of them. But here's my biggest pet peeve, and it's what I thought you were going to say. And it's not just ESPN. It's other reporters. Yeah. Shams and Waj, I should say. Stop with the tweeting the picks before they happen.
Oh, I didn't know. I'm off Twitter, bro.
Oh, I know. Oh, right. You're not. I forgot. But for people who are on Twitter, and I actually, for our account, have. Thank you. I actually have. For our All In Pod account, I have their tweet notifications, so I get that stuff, and we can, talk about it and stuff like that. And I'm just getting a notification every time a pick's coming up that who the pick is going to be, and of course they're right because they're the best at their job. But it defeats the purpose of the draft. Like, I wonder if ESPN is like, well, I mean, Waj works for ESPN, so obviously they're not upset about it. But my thing is, like, I stopped watching after a while because, like, I'm just like, okay, well, I follow Waj. I know,
right.
So, like, and then after the first round, first 35 picks, I should say, nobody really cares. Right. So, like, I don't know. That can't be good for ratings, right?
Probably not. Yeah, that's interesting with him working for ESPN. But I think the ESPN is probably like, well, you don't tweet it, James is going to tweet it. So
yeah, right. So
you might as well.
Right. So I mean, to me, that's it's a pet peeve. So I don't just blame Waj. I blame Shams, and maybe that's Yahoo's angle, right? It's to
might be
take their. Although I don't know that Yahoo is well, I guess he's the Athletic now, right?
He's the Athletic. Chris Haynes is Yahoo.
Yeah. Chris Haynes is Yahoo now. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the Athletic's angle. Maybe it's like, well, Waj will have to do it, and it's going to take away from ESPN's ratings. I don't know, but
Okay, actual player surprises and trade surprises. I think Patrick Williams at 4 was kind of a surprise. Nobody acted surprised, right? But I was kind of surprised. I didn't think he was going to go number 4 to Chicago.
that goes to your thing about the broadcast. It's like they're so busy talking everyone
They
up.
don't exactly. Like,
We missed that no one had Patrick Williams in their top 5 of a mock draft. No one.
nobody. And I like Patrick Williams, but I didn't think he was going to go number 4. So more just player stuff. I was surprised the Knicks took Obi Toppin just because
They have 17 power forwards.
they've got 17 power forwards and whatever. I mean, I guess if you're doing the Amari Stoudemire comparison, which is the comparison that I made back when we did our mock draft, the Amari Stoudemire.
Yeah.
I guess maybe they're going for that. And he's from New York. His interview, now I will say his interview was really good. And he was crying. He was crying the whole time. So I liked that part. But nobody said he's 22 and doesn't play any deep. So that's okay.
Yeah.
Player surprises. I wasn't too surprised after that with a lot of them. Pelicans taking Kira Lewis Jr. I liked it. He went higher than I think a lot of people thought. So he went 13. He went before Cole Anthony.
Should Lonzo be worried?
I think Lonzo's. Well, Lonzo sucks. So I don't know. What's he to be worried about? I don't think he should be worried because they drafted Kira Lewis. I think he should be worried because he sucks. And if he needed a reason to get in the gym, well, maybe this is the reason, I guess. So,
yeah, I guess. Maybe.
That's the biggest surprises for me, player-wise.
So for me, I thought Isaac Okoro went kind of high. Although I get it, I actually really like him. But I thought 5 was a little high. But both the Bulls and the Cavs were kind of in a situation where the next player available was Okongwu. I thought the Cavs at least might have gone with him. He was the next best big, and they don't have a ton of.
Well, they have Drummond and Love right now. So
right. Yeah.
So they're and just so you guys know, I also claim the Cavs to a small degree. They're terrible, but I do live in Cleveland, so I do claim the Cavs a little bit. I feel bad for Isaac Okoro because I really like him too. He's a great defender, but he can't shoot at all. But he's going to go play with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland, who, my favorite defensive stat is defensive box plus minus. I think I talked about that one quite a bit. They're like 2 of the worst 6 in the league, in the entire league, position stringent. So he's going to go play with those 2 terrible defenders. And every time he tries to drive because he can't shoot, he's going to have Andre Drummond and Kevin Love in the lane. So I feel bad for him, but I'm excited as a partial Cavs fan. I like that pick for them. I also like Okongwu. I like Okongwu to the Hawks.
Yes. Yeah. I wonder what they do with Clint Capella, or if they plan on bringing him along off the bench.
Yeah, maybe.
And obviously, I don't know how many people were expecting him to be like their franchise center, so maybe they weren't. But yeah, I like that pick for them. I actually like the Pistons rolling the dice with Killian Hayes.
Yeah.
Over Halliburton. He's the younger guy with, I would say, more upside, so makes sense there.
Yeah.
I like Killian Hayes. Reminds me a little bit of D'Lo.
Yes.
I thought Jalen Smith at 10 to the Suns.
That was
a shocker with Devin Vassell. Yeah, right. And I guess they expect him to play the 4.
Well, he can shoot.
Yeah, he can step out and shoot.
Oh yeah.
But the big stretch 4 isn't really a thing anymore. It's mostly small forwards who can't really play small forward anymore, Cam Johnson.
Right.
You know what I mean? Cam Johnson was actually really good at the 4. So, I don't know. I was thinking maybe they go Vassell and go Chris Paul, Booker, Vassell, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, small.
Well, I love Vassell. Vassell in this draft is my guy. And when we did our mock draft, which was a million years ago, my player comp was Paul George. ESPN's player comp was Anthony Davis.
They were like, well, no one's been as efficient as him. They were talking about his efficiency.
So that one didn't make sense. But whenever he was available and the Spurs were on the clock, I knew he was going there, and I changed my player comp to Kawhi.
I like that.
I mean, that's obviously highest ceiling possible.
Right.
But I really like Vassell.
Yeah, and if you go back to what Kawhi was coming out, he was Devin Vassell. Like, he was not what we know today. He did not have this handle. He did not shoot it like he does now.
First round pick.
Right, and he was the 15th pick of the draft. So the Spurs have a way of developing guys who aren't top 10 or super high lottery picks into good players. I think Devin Vassell has to be thinking like, wow, I don't think I could have gotten to a better situation. And when you look at it, like, I don't know, DeRozan opted in this year, but I doubt he's there past next year. Now, Lonnie Walker and Devin Vassell wing duo is a nice young duo growing up.
So, I like the Spurs. I'm buying Spurs stock right now.
With DeJounte Murray.
Yeah.
At the point. DeJounte Murray at the point, getting healthy. That's a nice top three right there.
I was surprised Tyrell Terry fell.
That
was someone that I think me, you, and Taylor were all pretty high on coming out of Stanford. But I like the fit that he got in Dallas to play alongside Luka, and they just traded Seth Curry, which we are about to talk about. But I do like that fit as well. Yeah,
and actually, I low-key wanted Cole Anthony to fall there because Dallas was going to be looking for, obviously a point guard in this draft. But Tyrell Terry was a good pick for them. So those are the only real surprises that I had. I did I think RJ Hampton. I don't know if he stayed. Went to Milwaukee. I'm not sure if that's getting traded or not. If that was I'm not sure if that was a part of a deal.
Did you see his dad on the broadcast? He threw the Milwaukee hat and swore expletives on ESPN.
Really? I missed that part. After the sixth pick, I tuned out.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. But
I don't think he was happy to go to Milwaukee.
So let's move on to my beloved Sixers.
Yep. Who
had some draft day trades and picks that we have to get into because Daryl Morey was hard at work yesterday. We'll start with the Al Horford trade.
Yep.
Al Horford, 2025 pick, and I think another second rounder was sent to the Thunder for Danny Green, who they recently acquired through the Lakers trade with Schroeder, and also Terrence Ferguson. So a couple of wing players being added for the Sixers. So let's break down that trade first. What were your thoughts on Al Horford being dealt to OKC?
No, I think you had to do it, right? The Al Horford experiment in Philly was just a total disaster. As I think you would agree, that was maybe a good idea if you were thinking one way, but I think it ended up being very bad. So I think you had to try to move him. I'm surprised that they were even able to move him with the contract and with the way he played last year. But I think you probably look at it from an OKC perspective, and you're like, okay, we'll take on Horford and we'll swap this Danny Green contracts and give us a few picks for our trouble. I think you're okay with that when you're in a rebuild. And then maybe Horford comes along. I think Horford might actually have a nice season in Oklahoma City this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he does have a nice season. But I like it for the Sixers. They get shooters. Not only Danny Green, but Ferguson is in that trade, I believe, right?
Yep.
So that's big, right? Those are two big shooters. We talked about this Philly team. We weren't sure where the shooting was coming from to go around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. I think this and other thing we always talk about with them is the spacing. Definitely helps the spacing to switch out Horford for two shooters.
Yeah, exactly. So, and a lot of people were like, because initially when Waj tweeted it, it just said first round. It didn't say what year the pick came in. And obviously Twitter, which is famous for its lovely overreactions, went up in arms. Like, really? Why are you giving up a first round pick because they look on the surface, they're like, why would you give up a first round pick for Danny Green? Well, we're not giving up the first round pick for Danny Green. We're giving up the first round pick to get rid of Horford. Right. Like, that was the point. Like, in order for you to dump a contract like that on someone, you have to give up picks. Right. Like, especially when and in OKC's thing is like, okay, well, this is what you do in rebuild mode because you're not necessarily worried about bad contracts because you're rebuilding. You want to be bad. So you'll take on bad contracts like Horford's in return for future first-round picks or, immediate first-round picks, which is part of the reason they took Danny Green, which is not a great contract. But, he comes with a pick, so you take it. So it worked for both sides. The Thunder got one of the 102 picks that they now have over the next 5 years. And, the Sixers got rid of one of the worst contracts in the NBA, period.
Yep.
And I say that because, like you said, I actually do think Horford's going to have a good year in OKC. The problem wasn't Horford. The problem is what you were asking Horford to do, which was be a power forward. He is in today's game. He's a center, and not only did you ask him to be a power forward, you're asking him to be a power forward with Ben Simmons as your point guard. That was and Joel Embiid as your center. That was never ever going to work under any circumstance. It's just I think anyone with a basketball brain saw that when the free agent signing happened. So it's good that they got rid of that contract, and with how old he is, there was no reason to ever pay someone that old that much money for that long. So Daryl Morey did a great job getting rid of that contract and adding shooting with that trade. To say we want about Danny Green, I think he will shoot the ball better than he did in the bubble, simply because there will be more movement. So I think he needs that. I don't think he's. A lot of shooters are hurt by just standing still the entire possession and having to catch and shoot. A lot of times that movement and that flow helps. So I think he will shoot the ball better, and he plays defense. There aren't too many 3-and-D guys in the league, even though that's where the trend is going. It's hard to find guys who actually do both. And then Terrence Ferguson is a younger, 3-and-D player. He's not quite a great shooter, but is improving in that area, and he's super athletic. So, obviously a good fit there. And your pick isn't that you gave up isn't until 2025. Hopefully that pick is the 30th pick of the draft anyway.
Well, hopefully.
Right. So that's the point. So let's move on to trade number 2, which was made during the draft, but in this case, it was Josh Richardson and a first-round pick. Again, a future first-round pick for Seth Curry.
Yeah.
From the Dallas Mavericks. I loved it. And again, not because I don't like Josh Richardson. I really like Josh Richardson. I thought he was a great return back when we let Jimmy Butler go. I thought that was great. And, I still like Josh Richardson. I didn't even think he was that bad of a fit. However, Matisse Thybulle makes him expendable. Danny Green makes him expendable.
Sure.
Terrence Ferguson makes him expendable. So when you talk about the wings that you now have, we need more shooting, right? That's what you need, this floor spacing around Ben and Joel Embiid if you're not going to separate the two, which is the Sixers have been adamant about. They're going to keep going with those two. Well, now you have to put the shooting around them. So Seth Curry likely comes off the bench still. But we also needed a perimeter scoring player off the bench, and Seth Curry provides that. So, I thought that was an excellent trade. That's one of the best shooters in the NBA. You can't ask for much more there. And not only is he a good shooter, he moves well without the basketball, and he can put the ball on the floor. He can play in pick and rolls. He's not just a standstill. He's not a Kyle Korver type. I think he's even better he's better with the ball in his hands than JJ Redick. So you know what I mean? He gives you a different type. Now, he doesn't offer much on the defensive end, but you don't trade for him asking him to do anything like that. So I thought that was a great trade. What were your thoughts?
I thought it was a great trade. Little jab by Doc Rivers at Paul George on the way out the door. I got your ex's husband on the team. So maybe that was it. Maybe he just wanted his son-in-law. So I think it's a great deal, right? I mean, he's a great shooter. You give up Jay Rich in a first-round pick. Now, maybe you're looking at it and you're like, hope we don't suck in 4 years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and this is what you do though when you're going to put the chips in. You got to give up the picks.
And you're clearing money with both of these trades for James Harden.
Possibly. And if if I'm the Rockets, I'm certainly intrigued in what Philly has, to offer in return. I think more than what the Nets can give me back. It's just my opinion.
The Nets don't have Ben Simmons. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, you definitely cleared up enough cap space. I think they can do it without giving up Ben Simmons. I don't know. I don't know how that works. You'd certainly have to give up Matisse in that case. But we'll see how that shapes out. And then with their only first round pick at the number 21 spot, they take Tyrese Maxey. So what are your thoughts on Tyrese Maxey, freshman guard out of Kentucky?
I like Maxey. We talked about him on the mock draft, and we're starting to sound like ESPN because we like all these guys. But I think he's an athletic guy, and depending on who he's around, I think that makes a lot of the difference, right? But I think with this roster, he fits in okay, especially when you are adding all these shooters, and you're also adding Joel Embiid. I like Maxey. I think it's a good pick for them.
Yeah, I like Maxey mostly because he, again, gives perimeter scoring. It's going to come off the bench in this case.
Well, they need that.
Right, exactly. And in his case, he's a guy where it gives him time to develop, right? Like, there's no pressure on him being a go-to scorer right away. His shot needs to get a little more consistent, and I think if that happens, he could very much be like an instant offense type of player, off the bench or as a starter, as we've seen, some guys be in the league. But what I really like about him is that he defends. He has a pit bull-like mentality on the defensive end. And so when he's in the game, he will not be a liability, I don't think, on that end of the floor. At bare minimum, he's going to compete. Like, a lot of times they tasked him on guarding the other team's best player. So
yeah. And you talk about him,
Kentucky.
Simmons, Thibault, it's
a lot of good defensive guards, man. Especially, maybe when your second five is in, that takes pressure off of Seth Curry having to defend. How often is a team's bench going to have two guards that can score? Maxey becomes that guy. A little bit of a combo guard. I think he needs to be more of a point guard, maybe not because of Seth, but I think he has to, become more of a facilitator, I would say. With that second unit, that's an area of his game where he'll need to improve. But again, there won't be a ton of pressure for that to happen right away, which I think is the perfect situation. 6'3", 6'8" wingspan. I think he has high upside, if you ask me.
I agree.
So the Sixers, for once in my lifetime, had a really good draft day. And I got to apologize a little bit to Daryl Morey. I didn't love him. I didn't love the idea of him coming to Philly. I didn't love them bringing him in. And it's because I was so scared that we were going to see what happened with the Rockets. And I think instead what we're seeing, and granted, the Rockets weren't terrible. They got really close, but like that style of like super small ball, the all analytics, no basketball thinking whatsoever, was a concern to me. But now I think when you balance him with like a Doc Rivers and an Elton Brand, who are kind of the three guys making the decisions, you have like the one guy who's like analytically really smart, right, and Daryl Morey, and then you have two guys who have actually played in the NBA / coached in it for a really long time, who kind of understand that, that part of it, where you get the balance. And I think that's what we're seeing here. We're like, okay, well, we're adding the shooting with Seth Curry, Danny Green, Terrence Ferguson, even possibly Maxey, right? But we're not sacrificing a ton of defense, you know what I mean? Or we're not sacrificing too much size. We still have enough size to where we're not completely playing with 6'5", 6'6" centers like the Rockets were. So I like what they're doing, man. I like what Daryl Morey has done. Most of the issues have been resolved.
Can we timestamp this? This is episode 54. So that means we've been doing the All In podcast for – how long have we been doing the All In podcast? 8 months? 9 months?
Yeah, something like that.
Wait, it's been a while.
It's been since May. It's about 6 months.
So 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months.
That is the first nice thing you've said about a Philadelphia sports team.
Yes, listen, take it where you can get it, Daryl Morey.
There you go, man.
It's It's things are looking sunny in Philadelphia.
Wow, beautiful. You're on a roll today, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So last thing we just want to cap off the show with is some recent development out in Boston. Gordon Hayward declined his player option and will become an unrestricted free agent. He was involved in a lot of trade talks, and when the Celtics season ended, we actually discussed that the Celtics do need to get rid of that, not him, but that contract, which they will do by default. And we're probably going to do with a trade. And the Knicks are interested now. So let's talk about what this means for the Celtics first, as far as what it opens up for them.
I don't think it hurts the Celtics that much, to be honest. Gordon Hayward's not been the same guy since he got hurt for a while now, and this kind of has all stemmed from him not being the same guy. And Brad Stevens has noticed it, and it reflected in the minutes. Like, if I was Gordon Hayward and I expected to be this guy who signed for this max deal, and I was this guy in Utah, and I was in the playoffs last season as the fourth or fifth option at times, I probably would have declined my player option too. Now, I don't know if I would have declined $34 million player option.
Yeah.
But I think he has options. I would not be surprised. You know, the Knicks, maybe they make a move. I can't see him on the Knicks. I can't see Indiana. And I think the most obvious is Indiana. You know, obviously he is a Indiana legend because of Butler.
Yep.
You know, a sign and trade deal. You know, they're looking to move Oladipo probably anyway. So maybe there's a signing trade with Oladipo going somewhere else. And Hayward signing there. Wouldn't be surprised at all. That's probably the most likely scenario, honestly, at this point.
Yeah.
But for the Celtics, I don't know how much this actually affects them.
You don't think?
I don't know. I just, you know, like, if they're replacing his minutes with Nesmith, who they just drafted, I think I'd rather have Nesmith. He's a sharp shooter, like, absolute flamethrower. Right, probably the best shooter in this draft, and I think that's more of what they need, you know, surrounding the pieces that they already have with Kemba and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I think I might rather have that in the rotation.
Yeah,
obviously he's better than Brad Wanamaker and Semi Ojeleye, but I don't know how big this drop off is for them.
Agreed. And not only did they get Naismith, they got Desmond Bane, who's also going to be a good two-way wing. They got Peyton Pritchard. The point guard from Oregon, who I think will give them some depth. So, like, I think they got a lot of depth, one, just on the three guys that they got out of the draft. But now they have some flexibility here in free agency. I think the Miles Turner was a discussion as far as a trade. I think that might fall through with Gordon Hayward opting out, which is interesting. I wonder if him opting out was kind of like, well, I'll control where I go.
Right.
You know, rather than, you know, taking this $34 million and you guys sending me to a wasteland, you know, I'll see what's out there for me on the market. I don't know. I probably would have took my chances with the $34 million.
I think so.
But yeah, me too. You know, what I mean, I can waste that year for $34 million.
Yeah. Right.
But you know, different strokes for different folks.
Sure.
You know, but for the Celtics, it's certainly not a negative, especially when you talk about Naismith and Desmond Bane. Will you know, replace those minutes, but it gives you the cap flexibility to do other things and address your center needs and also bench depth. So
yeah,
I think the Celtics are kind of like, wow, thanks.
Right.
now we don't have to worry about like shopping that contract, which was going to be difficult.
Yeah, it was.
So
yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for today's show. As always, it was great talking some NBA.
It was,
you know, after you know, talking about all these guys bashing their heads in on a football field.
Right.
So it was nice talking some NBA.
One day we'll talk soccer again too.
Yeah, we do have to get a soccer episode in, don't we? We might have to do we might have to do a special episode or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, so guys, make sure if you're tuning into this either on the audio or on the YouTube, that you go download our new app, available now on the Apple Store and Google Play Store. It's where you can follow our social media feed, listen to our podcast. You can also get easy access to our website. There you go. Mike has it there on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. So make sure you download that on your smartphone or tablet. It's the All In Network app. You can search it and easily find it on the App Store or Google Play Store. And for those of you listening on audio, biggest help, ratings, subscribing, things like that are all huge helps for us getting found by other people who could potentially listen.
Yep.
So after you listen, make sure you leave a rating. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you have time, write a review on what you think about the show. And we will also check those comments and use it as feedback to improve the show. So 3 different ways you can help us for free.
Yeah, absolutely. The ratings and reviews, we really can't talk about it enough, how important that is. It's, that's how technology works now, is you subscribe and then other people see stuff. So show some love. You guys already do in our audience, so we appreciate it. Head over to allinnetwork.net too for all the latest updates. All of our podcasts are home there, so you can find all of them, as well as our blog, which always has good updates and Coop's Power Rankings. So,
yep.
Make sure you guys are doing all that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so thank you guys for tuning in to episode 54 of the All In podcast, and we will see you guys again next week on Monday. Have a great day.